Coming up, the Prime Minister talks tough on fixing the environment.
Also going green tonight, we take a look at how to get tough on savings.
And Roberts talks tough on Rollins. The Bahamas tonight, the National Report starts now.
Now in HD. ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This portion of the news brought to you by BTC Every Day.
The country's leader making a global appeal for funding in wake of climate change for small island states like the Bahamas. Good evening, I'm Opal Road.
And I'm Candino Knowles. As Clint Watson tells us, the Prime Minister addressed the United Nations 2014 Climate Change Summit in New York City today, where he informed the prestigious body of world leaders that vulnerable nations like the Bahamas were tired of all the talk and now is demanding action.
It only took Prime Minister the Right Honourable Perry Christie less than 6.5 minutes to make his case to the world's leading international body. Mr. Christie took full advantage at the United Nations Climate Summit in New York City to ensure the country secures its share of international funding to implement the necessary framework and execution of plans against climate change. He told UN stakeholders that the Bahamas is perhaps one of the most vulnerable nations susceptible to the effects of climate change by our mere existence. He pointed out that the natural wonders that make our paradise stand out globally could also work against us if not monitored closely.
80% of my nation's landmass will be lost if the sea level rises 1.5 meters. They also say that with a warming of 3.7 to 4.8 degrees Celsius by the year 2100, as currently predicted, the Bahamas we know would be no more. It is therefore with this sense of urgency that I address you today. The Bahamas accepts the science on this issue. We have signed on to all the agreements, yet emissions into the atmosphere continue to grow.
In the same vein, the nation's leader also called for financial assistance so that small island nations like the Bahamas, most vulnerable by its very nature, can achieve the level of global sustainable development that is required.
The Bahamas welcomes the progress of the Green Climate Fund and calls for accelerating its operationalization so that the fund is ready to start disbursing resources by the Paris Summit in 2015. Money for adaptation and coastal defenses is also crucial. None of this should be dependent on the GDP per capita of small island development states like the Bahamas. We must look at each other's vulnerability to climate change, its debt, and more importantly, honor the principle that the polluter pays. Looked at like this, the Bahamas qualifies for funding and we expect our fair share.
Prime Minister Christie boasted that despite challenges, the Bahamas has made significant progress in addressing aspects of climate change.
We adopted a national energy policy, which includes the introduction of renewable energy goals of at least 30% of energy generation by way of renewable technologies by the year 2030. We also continue to focus on adaptation to climate change, despite our limited access to grant and concessional funding. We have identified the national policy for adaptation to climate change and work steadily toward implementation with civil society and other key partners. As we seek to expand our marine protected area, we have established the Bahamas Protected Area Fund.
Not mincing words, Mr. Christie says despite calls from international bodies, there remains a lack of action.
All the world has done is talk. The fact is that nothing the world has done so far has stopped this upward trend in global emissions. The Bahamas calls, therefore, for a sufficiently ambitious, comprehensive, and inclusive legally binding framework with commitments strong enough to reverse present upward emission trends.
Prime Minister Christie made it clear to the august body of some 120 leaders of nations that the survival of small island developing states must be the benchmark for the 2015 Climate Change Agreement. Clint Watson, ZNS Network News.
In other news, Chairman of the Progressive Liberal Party, Bradley Roberts, is responding to threats made by former Gaming Board Chairman and MP for Fort Charlotte, Dr. Andre Rollins, who says he would expose members of the party if Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Works Renward Wells resigns. At a press conference today, the PLP chairman said that the party brought Rollins in from the cold and gave him not only a political future but a public platform to advance the cause for the people of Fort Charlotte.
If Rollins has information and proof of anything, lay the same on the table or shut the hell up and go and sit down. He was sent to Parliament to do the people's business, but instead he strokes his oversized ego by repeatedly hustling the press for headlines. These salacious outbursts and self-serving antics do not serve the public's interests, but denigrate the nobility of public service and the parliamentary process to speculate and entertainment.
Now, additionally, Mr. Roberts says he's unsure as to the reasons behind Rollins' actions and says he's quite disappointed. When asked if these latest outbursts would impact Rollins' political future, the PLP chairman responded this way.
That will be determined by his constituents, obviously. They're the ones who will make the final determination and supported by the council of our party.
Well, yesterday we told you that some pharmacists complained about the National Prescription Drug Plan, saying they have lost thousands since the program began. Well, tonight we hear from the NIB minister, who says at the end of the day, the idea is to make medicine affordable and the plan sustainable.
Obviously, whenever we are introducing any type of plan designed to assist those who are less fortunate amongst us, we try to the greatest extent possible to try and see if we can put some sort of control over what persons are charged, and in this case what national insurance is charged for these drugs. And so when you look at the markup that they have, we thought it was reasonable, and in many cases I guess businesses would want to charge as much as possible to maximize their profits.
Now, Gibson also says despite the challenges, the drug plan has helped many.
The plan itself did well for a lot of individuals. As you know, prescription medication is very expensive, and so the fact that most Bahamians were able to participate in the plan, it was a big relief.
Well, the gaming bill is one step closer to becoming law as senators passed the bill last evening, making way for web shops to now become legal. Now,
however, before its passing in the upper chamber, Carla Palmer tells us that debate became intense.
Strongly opposed to the gaming bill, leader of opposition business in the upper chamber, Senator Carl Bethel, likened the bill to a bomb. He says the gaming bill is a destruction to society and that the government has no scientific proof to show how the bill will benefit or build the Bahamas. He called the legislation deceptive, saying gambling will hurt our society.
Madam Speaker, it's also deceptive for the government to be legislating blindly and saying that, you see, you can't say you're doing something that has social utility. You can't say you're doing something that is going to benefit society. You are misleading us if you say that as a fact when you have not conducted a single empirical scientific assessment of what the cost or the benefit of this proposed action is going to be. This is legislation that is irresponsible in the extreme.
In wrapping up the debate, Government Senator Keith Bell defended the government's position, saying despite the diversity of beliefs and opinions, the government must govern for everyone.
Ultimately, I would want to be there someday. The goal of this government and this parliament is to govern in the best interest of the Bahamian people. The members opposite have their own agenda and political realities to take that. This bill represents a new day in the Bahamas as it brings regulation and tax revenue to an industry which in some form or another has existed and thrived in these islands from as long as anyone can remember. This bill creates new economic opportunities for our people and provides the framework for future advancement in the industry.
The Senate has adjourned to Monday, September 29th, when the 4 crime bills recently passed in the House will be debated. I'm Carla Palmer for ZNS Network News.
Shifting gears now, government is looking to expand local sand mining operations as it seeks to diversify the economy. Today, the Agriculture Minister touched on the issue, explaining how the Bahamas can benefit from such a move.
There is much commercially to be gained from sand mining, rock mining, etc. Our country needs to expand its economic base, and whatever is good for the Bahamas, I think the government ought to explore possibilities.
Noting that there is not much danger in moving sand from the seabed, Gray weighed in on the removal of sand from a beach in the Berry Islands last week.
We don't want people to abuse what we might consider a privilege. And so I think the government is encouraging the process. I hope that these people who are presently mining have the requisite approvals to do so. But once that approval is in place and they do it in accordance with the rules and regulations which are set down, I don't see any issues with it.
And coming up, ZNS goes green. First, we look at how you can go green in the backyard.
And then we go green on Cat Island. You're watching the Bahamas Tonight.
This segment of the news is brought to you by Shell Quality Fuels.